In 1071, at the Battle of Manzikert in Turkey, the mighty Byzantine Empire, the eastern inheritor of Roman civilization, suffered a devastating defeat at the hands of the Seljuk Turks, which changed the balance of power in the Middle East. The Seljuks were originally nomads from Central Asia who had built up a highly skilled and effective army of horse archers and cavalry. They converted to Islam and came to dominate the Abbasid Caliphate based in Baghdad. Under their great sultans like Al-Arslan, they took control of huge areas from Persia to Caesarea, incorporating their cultures, societies, and armies into a powerful empire. Their main force always consisted of horse archers, able to ride for weeks on end, fight lightning campaigns, and then disappear into the rugged mountains, rarely having to face any larger armies in pitched battle. They also carried maces, swords, and spears, and some would have been lightly armoured for frontal assaults once an enemy had been worn down. That later they developed heavy cavalry and infantry for times like sieges and attacks on cities when they had to hold territory and not give ground. But at this time they were no match for their more heavily armoured European enemies in pitched battles. Without the Byzantine Empire to hold them in check, the Seljuks continued expanding to the west and south. Then in 1073, they took Jerusalem from the Fatimids, an Egyptian Arab Muslim dynasty, and ended up what had been a tolerant and profitable relationship with Europe when they persecuted Christian pilgrims and destroyed churches. In 1095, the Byzantine Emperor Alexius sent a letter to II to ask the soldiers to come and help him recover the Christian lands of Anatolia, now lost to the Seljuk Muslim forces. The Pope agreed so he could create ties with the East and boost his own popularity and power. The Crusaders believed a holy war would cleanse their sins, but at the same time they were hungry for conquest. For their part, the Byzantines did not really trust the Crusaders and made them swear an oath not to keep former Byzantine territory. The Pope made an inspiring speech to the soldiers of the Western Empire about the loss of safe passage to the Holy Land and the cruel treatment of pilgrims at the hands of the Muslims. Ever since the Arab conquest of Jerusalem in the 8th century, Christians in both East and West had dreamed of recapturing the city. He ended the speech with the famous words, Deus vult, which means God wills it. Many farmers, minor knights and citizens were led by Peter the Hermit on what is now known as the People's Crusade. It was not authorized by the Pope and set off months before the main Crusader army was supposed to gather. On their journey towards the Byzantine Empire, they slew many Jews in Central Europe. The People's Crusade reached Hungary and were initially welcomed until they plundered a Hungarian city and fighting broke out. By 1096, they finally reached the city of Constantinople. The badly organized and untrained Crusaders began plundering and taking Turkish territory. The People's Crusaders even captured the city of Zerigordon. It all seemed to be going perfectly well until Kilich Arslan arrived and attacked them. Soon enough, Arslan massacred half of the People's Crusade. Then he ambushed the other half at Nicomedia. The People's Crusade had started off with 20,000, but by the end of these two attacks, only a few thousand remained. Realizing this, it was time for the real Crusader army to set off for Constantinople. There were many generals and nobles who came to aid Alexius and recapture the Holy Land of Jerusalem. Some of these men were Godfrey de Bouillon, his brother Baldwin, Robert Curthose, Duke of Normandy, Robert Count of Flanders, Raymond Count of Toulouse, Adhemar, Pope Urban II's representative, Bohemond, Prince of Taranto, and his nephew Tancred. Between them, they numbered around 5,000 cavalry and 30,000 infantry, and included Normans, Flemish, Franks, and Italians from various kingdoms in Britain, France, Italy, and Germany. They would have been among the best armed and trained fighters in the world, and came from warlike cultures that had been fighting and conquering their way around Europe for centuries. They were also fundamentally and often fanatically committed to Christianity, believing that to fight for God was the best way to be forgiven for their years of spilling blood. They also fancied a chance to enhance their reputations and carve out territory in rich new lands. Also, anyone buried near the Temple Mount within Jerusalem would ascend to heaven at the end of days. By the spring of 1097, the Crusader army was assembled, and they chose the city of Nicaea as their first target. Nicaea was heavily defended by high city walls. By May 14, 1097, the Crusaders had surrounded the city walls but had failed to break through. Hearing this, Kilich Arslan attacked, but was defeated by the Frankish heavy cavalry, forced to retreat to the dismay of Nicaea's citizens. A few days later, the Crusaders had still failed to break through. That night, the Byzantines sailed into the harbour, blocking the food supply to Nicaea. The city surrendered to them, and the inhabitants fled. The Byzantines settled inside, but didn't open the city gates to this important city for fear of plundering. In the morning, the Crusaders woke up and realized what had happened, knowing that they had been betrayed. Alexius had to buy them off. After this, some Crusaders stayed near the city, while 4 other generals marched further onwards to capture more land. To do so, the easiest way was to walk through a ravine with hills on either side. However, the army was too large, so Robert Curthose, Duke of Normandy, and Bohemond, the Prince of Taranto, took their half of the army and walked a day's journey ahead. Raymond, Count of Toulouse, and Godfrey de Bouillon walked with the other half a day behind. The vanguard soon reached the ancient town of Dorylaeum and set camp there on the evening of June the 30th. On the morning of August the 1st, the Crusaders woke up to see Sultan Kilich Arslan's army surrounding their unprepared camp. Their messengers ran to the rear guard led by Raymond, Count of Toulouse, and Godfrey de Bouillon to inform them that the vanguard were under attack in Dorylaeum. The Crusaders' camp had 10,000 men, led by Robert Curthose, Duke of Normandy, and Bohemond of Taranto. Sultan Kilich Arslan's army numbered 8,000, mainly light horse archers. The Crusaders under Robert Curthose made a semicircle shield wall to try and protect the pilgrims in the middle. Meanwhile, Bohemond led a ferocious charge with Norman heavy cavalry. However, the Seljuks outran them easily. He ordered the Norman knights to dismount and create a shield wall around the pilgrims in a protective formation. The Crusaders were in a protective pentagon shape, 3 sides led by Robert Curthose and the other 2 by Bohemond. They stubbornly held the defensive formation as their commanders kept them going. The Crusaders had an iron discipline and would not break the shield formation. Kilich Arslan soon sent in his infantry to attack Robert Curthos's sides of the Pentagon. At the same time, horse archers rode around and shot at Bohemon's forces. The Crusaders were still holding, but had suffered from huge losses, and their shield wall began to break. Soon the rear guard arrived, but only half, led by Godfrey de Bouillon. The Crusaders thought they were saved, but even the relief force couldn't change the tide of battle. It was turning into a disaster, and the Crusader forces were rapidly diminishing. Even worse, Kilich Arslan sent more and more infantry to cripple the Crusaders' forces. When all seemed lost, Bishop Adhemar, the representative of Pope Urban II, attacked from behind, smashing into the unsuspecting Seljuks, completely destroying their rear units. Now the Seljuk cavalry had to turn around to attack Adhemar's forces, allowing the Crusaders to disengage their shield wall and chase after them. The Seljuks had now lost their ultimate weapon, their hit-and-run archers. The Seljuks fought on with their infantry in a last attempt to defeat the Crusaders, but Kilich Arslan knew it was hopeless and ordered a retreat. This was a shocking loss for the Seljuks. Kilich Arslan's army had shrunk from 8,000 troops to about 4,000. This proved to be a decisive battle in the First Crusade, and Kilich Arslan never openly attacked the Crusaders again.